We are back, and we're being joined by our first guest of the evening. She is, Bellator Flyweight. I still want to consider undefeated boxing standout, Heather the Heat Hardy. How we doing this evening, Heather?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And yourself?
Awesome. Great fights this weekend. We had football today. So, you can't really complain too much as an American, I guess.
Yeah, I guess not, right?
What about you? How was your weekend? Did you catch any of the boxing or the MMA fights?
I didn't catch the MMA. I'm a boxer at heart, so I couldn't miss that.
Oh, yeah, I know. I got to ask you, what are your thoughts on the whole draw? I got to ask.
Come on. That was garbage. If Canelo won 2 rounds, it was a lot, man.
Yeah. But I mean,
I love
like
the
sort
guy.
of a... Good.
I was going to say, I love the guy. I was always, a big fan. And even before the fight, I couldn't pick who I even thought was going to win. But I saw the fight. Let it be what it is, and that's what kills boxing because it's so it's politics and business. It's not the sport of boxing. That's why it's nobody is really into it anymore, right?
Well, Canelo made a commercial with Sylvester Stallone, right? So Sylvester Stallone was already vested in this fight. So there was a lot of people vested in Canelo. And from what I was hearing, that with all the investment in Canelo, it was hard for the judges to have a decisive win, which is ridiculous because I think with Heather, I think with boxing, like they were saying, these guys bleed, they sweat, and they grind, and then you get this.
I know. So it's really it's like somebody said once that boxing is like a bad girlfriend, right? No matter you hate it and you want to leave it, but you just keep on coming back, man.
I like that analogy. But I mean, when you basically boil down to it, isn't this a reason why you're having problems finding superstars in boxing, where we were in the 80s and the 90s, it didn't matter what weight class there was always somebody who would stand out in that weight class. And now as we go along, it doesn't matter if we're talking about MMA or boxing, it's really hard to find more than a handful of stars. Is stuff like this the reason why people are going away from boxing? Because, God forbid you get in there, have a bad night, and have to go to a judge's scorecard. You could wind up, being on the wrong side of a bad decision, or fought tooth and nails your entire career to get that title fight in, and the judges are more invested in your opponent, and somehow you win the fight but somehow lose the fight. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that I don't ever want to see somebody that I'm close to in the sport go through, because I could not imagine it. I would absolutely be livid. I probably would wind up, snapping out on somebody I shouldn't. But that's just me.
Yeah, it's really traumatizing. And, that when you see a fight like this, they were already talking about a rematch in the trilogy before the fight even happened. It was when Ward fought Kovalev, they are pumping up being able to sell more tickets for more shows, for another fight, the next fight. And it's I think the fans are getting a little tired of it.
I can't blame them.
If they hit boxing, if they hit them in the pocket, in the money bags, and people stop paying for the pay-per-views and stop showing up, that's the only way things are going to change. But then when you have, it's like boxing came in the limelight once again with McGregor and Mayweather, and then after this, it's what the hell?
Yeah.
And the judges, and it's I forget the announcer's name, an older guy. He's been around for years in boxing, and just ripped into the judges last night.
Jim Lampley, right?
Yeah. And it's like you got judges that have never even thrown a punch. Judging fights. It's
but this
ridiculous.
Goes back to what I say, Brad. Don't I say this all the time, man? Fans want to get so upset about it and stuff like this, but they just get on social media and complain about it. No one ever does anything. There are ways to change for having these people available to be judges. Go and take what's necessary steps it is so you can go be a referee, you go be a judge. I'm not acting like it's the easiest thing in the world to do because it's definitely not. It's probably one of the most thankless jobs when it comes to combat sports is being a referee or being a judge. But if you feel that these guys are that incompetent, do something about it, man. And even to the commissions that are licensing these guys to be judges, you have to have something on the back end when if they do something to this point where it's like, what were you watching? You have to put that person in some type of disciplinary thing and teach them up or something. You just can't allow something like this to continue to happen over and over and over. It's the same conversation we've been having about aspects of combat sports in regards to we're talking about boxing or MMA, just terrible judges who continually make terrible calls. There has to be something you can do to either teach them up or keep them out of these big profile pay-per-view fights or whatever.
Sure, especially when you see two judges, one judge has it a tie, one judge has it even, one judge has it like 113, 115, and then you got one judge scoring at 118 to 110. I mean, there ain't no two ways about it. That's not even possible. So, I don't know. I
think judges should get drug tested. I think it should be around the board.
I don't think
all the judges need a drug test.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a problem.
Maybe they should get their eyes checked.
Yeah. Did he just throw a punch right there? I don't know.
Oh man, but yeah, you just had your get off the boxing topic for a second. I mean, you did just have your next MMA fight. I think your opponent was officially announced, correct, this weekend?
That's right.
So now you actually have a name to go with the date. Does that change anything for you? As you're getting ready to get into the end part of this, getting closer to the end of the training camp here. I believe you only got a handful of weeks left. Does that really bother you any, or you're just just trying to continue? Go ahead.
I never really focused too much on who my opponent was, right? Like in MMA, it's a little more important because there are so many different aspects to how a person fights. And my coaches watch the tapes and they train me to get me ready for a win, right? So, I mean, I have my girls that I spar with. I'm doing my wrestling, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, boxing, my strength training, everything is the same, whether the girl has a name, a face, or nothing, right?
Gotcha.
Right, because ultimately you want them to play into your game plan, correct?
Right, I want to maximize the things that I do well and be able to manipulate the person in front of me to make sure I'm always doing the things that I'm able to do, right? Like not put myself in a position where I'm fighting someone else's fight. But how do I, if I have to, how do I have to turn it back so I'm in control? Because that's really what a fight is, right? Like always be in control, whether it's the cage or the ring, be in control and to fight at your own pace. So that's really the game plan going into everyone. Learn as much stuff as I can.
I mean, and you also have even when it comes down to MMA, you have, I think, a unique thing too because you have, Team Henzo behind you. You had, Daniel Gracie in your corner for that Bellator debut. Having people like that to kind of work things out. Like even if say you go in there and you had a way that you thought the fight was going to go and that first round doesn't go your way, you have guys in your corner to say, hey, this is what you need to do to correct this. I think having a coach like a guy like Daniel who's been in the cage, been in war rooms with some of the best MMA fighters on the planet. Having a guy like that in your corner I think is another invaluable asset on top of having a great skill set.
For sure. I mean, you're only as good as your team is, right? And I have a great group of coaches, not even just Daniel. My striking coach for MMA Devon is an three-time world champion kickboxer. I have a boxing for MMA coach, Coach Nick, who's teaching me all sorts of tricks that I can, turn around and keep the fight hand to hand. And the guys are great. And the best part about them is they're all so hands-on that they can look at me fighting and know what it is I need to hear to change the story if it need be, right? Like nobody gets panicked, nobody gets nervous. They don't be asking me to do stuff that I'm not capable of, right? Like they know what I need to do to win. that's how you need your team to be.
I definitely hear that
Heather,
one.
too, with your experience, I'm sure you don't get all that rattled. I mean, I know it's a different situation and all, but I'm sure you don't get all that rattled when adversity strikes.
As soon as you get in there, like, the nerves go away. When I was coming out for this debut, it was the first time when I was nervous since the Golden Gloves. I was walking through the tunnels in Madison Square Garden going, oh, my God, what are you doing, you idiot? Why did you say you do this, you know? And I haven't gotten that since I was in amateurs boxing. So that was really exciting to be able to feel that again. I'm sure my first couple fights, it'll be the same way until I'm super confident and, you know, like I am in boxing now, having walked the walk. But I think you always get nervous. Coaches always tell me in the locker room, if you're not nervous, then that means you're dead. You have to be nervous.
Yeah. What's been the toughest thing to
that's another part
with?
Of it too.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead, Steve. What has been the toughest thing to transition with as far as MMA? I know you got the boxing down pat, so you really didn't have to focus on that. But as far as wrestling or jiu-jitsu, maybe have you worked on any judo? I mean, what's been the toughest thing for you?
Well, the toughest thing, honestly, is like time management, right? Because like I still have a full-time job and I'm still a mom. So having to get all my lessons in is not really easy. So it's like, you didn't put the gi on yet this week, and it's Thursday. And I'm like, well, I have a PTA meeting, and my kid's picking high schools, and I have work all day tomorrow, you know. So really finding the time to do everything has been challenging because it's so new to me. Like, I've had to totally change my schedule. Outside of that, I think that the hardest part is, like, body position, you know. Like, I'm so used to fighting at a certain distance and a certain way in boxing, and all of that changes when someone can throw you on the floor or kick you in the face, right? So finding a safe distance and a comfortable body position, you know, not be too square but not too sideways, has been challenging. But, you know, I'm a fighter. If somebody stole my wallet on the street, I really don't worry about how my fucking body stands up, right? You just fight. So when it comes down to fight night, all the training stuff goes out the window, right? It's just like, all right, it's me and you, and only one of us is coming out alive.
I say it all the time. MMA is more of a matter of inches than football ever is, because if you step in a little bit too much throwing a punch, it doesn't quite have the effect that you have on it. You're a little bit too far away. It's just, you're basically pushing them away. Game of inches in MMA, it's really crazy.
I totally agree with you. I mean, in a second, the greatest fighter can get taken out by a little mistake, right?
Yes, we've seen it. We've seen it dozens of times. Anybody?
Yeah, we were talking about. I was just talking about Luke Rockhold and Michael Bisping. I mean, there's a prime example right there.
Well, no, that was ignorance. Let's not make that a game of inches. That was just utter ignorance. Luke Rockhold had his chin so straight up in the air that freaking, a blind kid throwing a baseball could have knocked him out.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man.
George St. Pierre
I got love
Sarah.
for Bisping. Don't get me wrong. I downplayed Michael a lot. His accomplishments are his accomplishments. But, I mean, I don't think Luke could have gift-wrapped that for him any better. I'm sorry. No disrespect to Luke, no disrespect to Michael. He had no respect for Michael's stand-up. It showed. That's why Bisping's the champion right now. Had a great showing last night. We'll see what happens moving forward.
So, hey, Heather, who's your opponent?
I'm sorry, who's my...
Can you announce your opponent? I mean, is it still a secret?
Oh, sure. I think her name is Christina Williams. I think it's going to be her first fight. She had, like, some pro Muay Thai, and she did... she was undefeated as an amateur in MMA, but this is going to be her Bellator debut.
Oh, Sunshine.
Sunshine? I don't know. So you might ask questions, and I'll be like, yeah, and I don't know.
No, that's cool.
I'm sorry.
I don't either.
So,
hey, keep it real, Heather. That's the one thing I love about doing stuff like this, because we get to kind of see who the real you is, not just the we do the interview, we're going to talk some MMA stuff, but we go off topic. Like, you made this tweet the other day about the Uber driver. Oh, my God, that I was dying. Because I actually have a couple of friends who are Uber drivers, and I showed it to him, and he was dead up rolling on the ground laughing. He's like, he was like, if I was ever did that to somebody, he was like, I would legit sit there and be like, hey, you want to stop and get a coffee? I won't charge for that. You don't have to be angry at me no more.
They're wrong for that. Or like if you get in the car and it smells like pizza, like, come on, man. Come on.
You're like, I couldn't wait. I will kill you.
I know. This is a real problem.
But also at the same time, I guess that's what we get for also relying on Uber drivers, because at the same time, like, granted, you're in New York. I don't blame you for not trying to have a vehicle or anything like that. Public transportation is also a no-go too, because of because how crazy that city can be at times.
Sometimes you just be lazy and not feel like taking the train, and if you get stuck or if you're running late, Uber just makes it so easy. I swear my bank account is like an Uber and food receipts only.
And this Uber driver, he might have been working part-time at a pizza delivery place, so he might have been delivering pizzas and doing Uber.
Well, she said it smelled like pot and coffee, so I mean that sounds like an interesting that sounds like an interesting driver.
That is a new pizza.
I can only hope that the pot was the guy who got out before me, right? Like, not the driver.
Well, I think that's a misconception too. I actually think that drivers who probably smoke are less inclined to get in accidents than say someone who's drinking.
Right.
Yes, you are impaired. I'm going to give you that. But the guy who's high is probably going to stop at a stop sign and wait for it to turn green instead of blowing through a stop sign.
Well, hey, Steve, if he's waiting at a stop sign for it to turn green, he's really fucking high.
I'm just saying, you're less. I still think there's a lesser chance you get in an accident, but that's just me and my opinion. We all have our own takes on it. I'm sure Heather was like, "Can he just be fucking sober and not kill me? That'd be great."
Heather's like, God, Heather's like, this guy's driving 15 miles an hour. What the hell? The speed limit's like 35. Move your ass. He's like, dude, I'm going as fast as I can.
But if you think about it, if you're an Uber driver, wouldn't you want to try to get there later because you're going to get more money for the longer the ride takes?
No, you don't get more money. No, they don't charge you.
Or is it go by the mileage? Mileage, not time, right?
Yeah, they tell you beforehand, how much you pay, and then it don't matter if you get stuck in traffic. Like, if you're in a yellow cab and you get stuck in traffic, you get your ass out and walk because they charge you so much. But in an Uber, it don't matter.
Got you. See, I've never had the pleasure of having to do the Uber thing. I'm thinking about doing it though. On the weekends at least. Might be interesting running into some interesting people.
Steve has a horse and carriage out back. He has a horse and carriage out back. That's the only thing.
A horse and carriage. I'm not that old. Come on, man.
So, Heather, how's it fighting for Bellator? I know you got one fight under your belt.
Well, I just signed a long-term promotional contract, so I'm super excited to be spending the next couple years with them. I love the team. I love the atmosphere. It was a great first experience, and I'm ready to jump right in.
And the interesting thing about that whole thing is that she was almost an Invicta fighter. I'm sure it's not anything against Invicta. Just the way circumstances worked out. She wound up fighting for Bellator and kind of fell in love with the promotion. Who's the faulter? I have no problem with Bellator, UFC, Invicta, whoever it is going to give you your opportunity to shine. Do it.
I feel the same way, man. But I really like Bellator from the beginning, from the first earliest conversations I had with them. So I'm really happy with the fit. Everything happens
But
for a
here's
reason.
the interesting thing, though. Here's the interesting thing. Shannon Knapp is starting to Invicta Boxing, at least by the beginning of next year. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like Bellator has the kickboxing thing. Who's to sit there and say that, you might not try your hand at that as you're moving along? Like, that's why I like where MMA or combat sports is now, because if we were talking about this 20 years ago, you wouldn't have these type of opportunities and all these other promotions or whatever like that.
Right.
It's a great time of growth in combat sports, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Me too.
I don't think we have to really concentrate on where, who's the best in the world anymore, because I don't really think it really matters as much to fans as it did 20 years ago. It's more about the spectacle and the excitement of the event more than who's the best. I mean, or am I wrong? Do you feel that way too?
No, I mean, I think it's a great time, Do I feel what? I'm sorry, I lost the.
It's all right. Like I'm saying, like I'm actually kind of feeling like the way the sport is being followed. I'm talking about combat sports in general, not just boxing, not just MMA, all in general. That it's not really about who's the best fighter in the world. It's about the event, the excitement around the fighters that are on that event, the hype around that. More like it's more geared towards the spectacle of the sport rather than who's the best of the sport. Do you kind of agree with that assessment?
Yeah, but I think now it's really, at least for MMA, it's like a time for growth, right? Like you see the UFC is adding the new weight division, and Bellator just signed a ton of new fighters. So I think that now is almost like a transitional time. Like it's not about who's the best, but it's about, just putting on great fights, right? Like right now, in female MMA anyway, like you can't really name like the top stars. Like, are there really, girls that you're dying to see fight at the time? So I think it's like expanding almost. Like,
yeah, I think it's a great time of growth for the sport, not just for the women's side of things, but the men's side of things. As well, you're starting to see. Kind of it's like what I talk about. Like every 5 years, you kind of get a flushing out of the old stars, and kind of you're getting injected with the new group. Like we're starting to see. Conor basically got there at that point where he's about like 4 or 5 years into being there now, and he's the biggest star in the sport.
Right.
As of right now. So like who's to sit there and say in within 5 years that Conor's going to kind of fade out, and there's going to be someone else that kind of takes the mantle and runs with it. We were all at a point in time where George St. Pierre was the biggest guy. Then there was times that was Chuck. The same thing with women's MMA. It's kind of taken transformations. It was early on it was Gina. Then it was almost Chris for a time. Then Ronda blew up. Now like it's almost starting to look like Chris is kind of going to get that respect now moving forward, and kind of you're waiting for that other shoe to drop for that next star who's probably was training. Was a young teen when Ronda blew up, and they're probably getting ready to start transitioning to making their their amateur MMA debut, and they'll probably be the next star in 5 years or so. It's interesting to see how the sport kind of has a revolving door like that. I think, at least I do anyway.
Yeah, I feel like it's that like things are going to be interesting soon, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely with you with seeing where these next where these next stars are coming from, where the next champions come from. But we're actually up against it right now. I know Heather's getting to the point where she's going to be pressed for time. What we typically do at the end of the interview is throw the proverbial microphone over you. Anyone else you would like to thank, training partners, teammates, shoot out your social media sites, any sponsors you have, anything like that, Heather, the time is yours.
Oh, well, I'd like to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to talk today. And, thank the guys at Bellator and at the Bella Entertainment for coming together and making me a two-sport athlete. It hasn't been done, so pretty exciting. And I'm looking forward to my next fight. So follow me on Instagram at Heather the Heat.
We're definitely excited, guys. Make sure you tune in. Heather is definitely one of the upcoming bright stars in combat sports. And wish you the best of skill in the upcoming fight there on the 20th. And we'll definitely look forward to having you back on sometime in the future to have some more fun and some more lanes. You have a good one. Have a nice night, Heather.
Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.